Hi, welcome to part 2 of my 3-part series on the Moeller Method. In this video, you'll learn the basic hand technique that forms the foundation for the movements that are more commonly thought of as being the Moeller Method. Remember that I'm making a distinction between what I'm calling strict Moeller, which uses this hand technique, and adapted Moeller, which is modified to fit, say, German timpani or some of the other grips that are out there. As I said in the introduction, I urge you to try this and really check it out. Really learn it before you decide whether or not it works for you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but learn it before you make that decision. Some of this might feel really odd to you if you're used to something different. So stick with it long enough to really be doing it correctly, and then if it works for you, fine. I have found this to be indispensable, so I hope it proves that way for you. Okay, to begin with, let's keep in mind that Moeller was teaching kind of the old military style. And the old military style was based mainly on a stroke that used the rotation of the forearm or a turn of the wrist more than like a flap of the wrist or pronation of it. Okay? In the traditional grip, of course, the left hand would be here, but it would rotate, and the right hand would be over here, and it would rotate. So you'd be kind of like that. And one quick little aside, a lot of those old school guys didn't even really have a fulcrum. We need that for modern playing, so we're going to adapt that. But the grip is going to be pretty much the right hand grip of the old school military style. And we're going to use that motion as the basis of our basic stroke. Okay? Now the grip is going to go more across my hand. You see that? As opposed to straight down my hand. You know, a lot of teachers will say to put the butt of the stick in this notch of your palm. Well, for this, think of it more as being in this notch of your palm. Okay, so it's going to go across the hand like that. Though I'm not going to squeeze it into my hand. I want you to keep in mind that you're always going to grip the stick with the same kind of firmness that you might hold an egg. Or Chapin would say, Moeller would talk about holding a baby bird. Delicately, but firmly enough to where it's not going to come out of your hand. It should be noted that the fingers aren't going to stick out and they're not going to lose contact with the stick. The pad of your finger is always in contact with the stick and they're always around it. You see that? So keep in mind, Moeller taught that you mainly grab the stick with your little finger. So I always tell my students to basically get your little finger around it and learn how to feel that. And then nothing needs to squeeze the stick very tightly. And it'll keep your hand really relaxed. So it's always like that, okay? Notice that the first finger is broken away from the other three, and that I maintain an opening between my thumb and first finger. The thumb's always on the stick. We don't want to do any of this kind of stuff, but it's always straight on there, okay? Now the hand position is what's going to probably feel the most unusual for people who are used to French timpani and German timpani methods, because you're probably used to having your hands really close together and, as a point of reference, maybe being over your hips or over your upper thigh. So your hands are inside your shoulders and in here. Now for this method, they're going to be what's going to feel like a lot further apart to you. Imagine your hands on your knees, and you're just going to pick them up. And as a point of reference, you can see your hands pretty much over your knees, palms down. Note the upper arm hangs loose. This is important, and I'll go into that in a minute. But just think, shoulder to elbow, dead weight. The only tension that I want in my arms is that which is necessary to hold the hands up. Okay, so I'm not here, I'm not here, I'm not here, I'm not doing anything crazy, just my hands are here, okay? With the grip and the arms in position, you'll see that your sticks are at basically a 90-degree angle over the middle of the snare drum. Your hands are above your knees. And one thing that's kind of interesting to note, if I'm in German mode or French mode even, my forearm will kind of cut across the line of my thighs as I'm seated at the drum kit. But in this technique, my forearm will follow that line. So that's another point of reference. So you'll end up like this, okay? Now, from that position, you're going to turn your sticks, turn your wrist straight up So the sticks are literally pointed at the ceiling. We don't want to be here. We don't want to be, here. I want them straight up. And note that my hands are outside the line of my shoulders now. I'm not like this. I'm like so. Okay? Note also that I'm not showing you my palm and I'm not showing you the back of my hand. My wrist stays straight in kind of a handshake position. And then with the grip, the sticks are straight up in the air like this. Okay? Now the stroke is going to follow this quarter of a circle. Okay? Think of it like that. And it's going to come down to the drum. It's going to come back away. Looks like this. Okay? Here's why it's important to not stick out the elbow. That quadrant of the circle is where all the freedom is. Watch what happens when I stick out my elbow. I'm eating into that. So the elbows hang, hands are shoulder width apart, and we're going to follow that quarter of the circle for the basic stroke. Now, for this exercise, note that I'm coming all the way up in a full stroke and that the return is simultaneous. It's bang, down and up, not down and up. I'm not pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. I'm throwing the stick and the impact energy is carrying it back up for me. I'm really only pushing to about here and the rest is all momentum. That's important. We want to let the stick do all the work for us rather than having to yank it back up. And you'll see how that plays into the big motions in the next video. Now, the exercise for this is very simple. Chapin used to call it stop at the top. Wherever the stroke begins, that's where it ends. And that's a good rule of thumb. Now, obviously, for grace notes and things like that, it's going to come down. And this isn't the position I'm always going to be in. If I'm playing quietly, I'm going to be down here. But for this exercise, we want to work through the entire range of motion, get a very straight, consistent, relaxed stroke, and then we can move on from there. So I'm simply going to play a measure of quarter notes with each hand coming all the way back up in a good bounce every time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, we're going to count repetitions of that. So every time I come back around to the right hand, I'm going to increase the count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. And so on. I want you to do 100. And I want you to do it at a very slow tempo, say about 60 beats a minute. You need the time to feel the rebound. The looseness is coming from the rotation of my hand, rotation of my forearm, not from opening up the fingers. That's not how I'm bringing the stick back up. Again, remember, you can just kind of think about your little finger, and then nothing really has to squeeze. Okay? Count it out loud and look at every stroke. My rule is if I'm doing an exercise and I'm not looking at it and I'm not hearing myself count something, I'm wasting my time. So make your practice pay off by doing it that way. Now, some little details. Note that the way that I'm motivating the stick, if I'm pushing from anywhere, it's from my first finger in the fulcrum. I'm not coming down with my thumb. A lot of guys want to do that. Again, all the fingers stay around the stick and they don't open up. Even if they're still on the stick, they don't open up. I have kind of an esoteric concept about the grip and maybe it'll help you. I don't think of it so much as pulling the stick into my palm as I'm not letting it out. It's a subtle difference, but it keeps me relaxed, okay? I'm not squeezing the stick at any point. You need to get this stroke down in order to understand how it fits inside of the downstroke of the Moeller method. So take some time and perform this exercise for about a week before moving on. It's probably going to take some of you 25 to 50 repetitions before it even starts to loosen up. So give it time. The sensation you're after is dribbling a ball, not driving a nail. And once you develop the looseness and you're really getting that good rebound, the stick will feel lighter to you. You'll feel like you're not hitting so hard. And that means all that impact energy that was previously going into you is now going into the stick, and it's doing the work for you. Another thing to keep in mind is follow the trajectory of the tip of your stick with your eyes, and you should see a straight line. Can you see how that cuts a straight arc? Now watch. Can you see it wobble? That means that I'm killing it and getting some tension. So straight arc from top to bottom. Keep the sticks literally pointed at the ceiling. Don't let them wobble. And again, 100 repetitions of that basic exercise for about a week at a slow tempo, say around 60. I hope you enjoy that. I hope it starts to make playing feel good for you. When you've done this exercise, play your way and just have some fun. Remember, we don't want to confuse practice with playing, so do that. And I think you'll find that things will come a little easier to you. But give that a try, and then in the next video, we will talk about more of the, popular motions that get associated with Moeller. So have fun, and thanks for watching.